Welcome back to Morning Express. It's time for our second half of conversations as we look at the topic, democracy and legislature in Nigeria. Well, since 1999, the parliament has been the symbol of democratic representation. Beyond having elective executive officers, legislative representatives from constituencies both in the red and green chambers have symbolized Nigeria's yearnings for a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. This morning, we'll be talking to a member of the 10th National Assembly, a federal lawmaker in the House of Representatives, who represents Ika, Etim Ekpo Federal Constituencies of Akwa Ibom State, talking about Honorable Clement Jimbo. Honorable, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much and good morning, Nigerians.
Let me start by saying congratulations. It's your second year. As much as I've had all of your colleagues, particularly from Akwa Ibom State, talk about some of the good works that you're doing for your individual constituencies. At the top to start with, how would you rate the legislative interventions of the 10th National Assembly?
Thank you so very much for the compliment. Yesterday marked officially my 2 years as a member of the National Assembly. And I recall that it was on the 13th of June, 2023, we inaugurated. So today we are actually starting a fresh 2 years to complete the first 4 years. Yes, back to your question. The 10th National Assembly, particularly the House of Representatives, the data that was reeled out by Mr. President yesterday in the joint session where he addressed the Parliament clearly buttressed the point that indeed the 10th National Assembly has worked in synergy with the yearnings and aspirations of Mr. President and by extension Nigerians. In terms of the laws we've enacted, in terms of the motions we've moved, in terms of the petitions we've laid on the floor, and so many other things that have translated into real-time development, ramping up our gross domestic products, creating employment for our teeming population, and a whole lot. The 10th National Assembly, I will say, has lived up to its bidding within the first 2 years.
Now, in terms of the numbers, it's quite interesting because we're told that the House of Representatives have considered 2,263 bills and passed 186 in 2 years. Of those, 51 of those bills have received presidential assents. But more importantly, in terms of the bills, many Nigerians might not be too conversant with the legal implications of the bills and how they translate into their personal lives. But one thing that stands out for me when I was looking at that report is the amounts of recoveries in terms of debts owed to the country, particularly from the oil and gas sector. The House Oversight Committee was able to recover 61.5 billion naira of outstanding debts owed to the federal government by oil and gas companies. Has this been one of the strategic interventions you would say amongst all I've just read out in terms of the functions of the 10th National Assembly under the House of Representatives?
Yes, I will say completely. It's just a tip of the iceberg of what we've been able to achieve in the 10th National Assembly. The figures we just read out as recoveries is as a result of one leg of our functions, which is the oversight function, and that is done by the Committee on Public Account. Now, if you look at what that committee has done, then you will ask yourself a question. Supposing there was no House of Representatives or no National Assembly, how would Nigeria recover such an amount? And more are still coming. When we resume on the 24th of June, Nigerians will indeed be amazed on another level of recoveries and discoveries that we will embark on or bring to their notice. Then, if you talk in terms of the laws that we have enacted, how has it translated into real-time development for Nigerians? If you look at the NEL Fund, the Student Loan Act, for example, when the act came on board in 2024, we appropriated about 22 billion naira for students to assess, and they assessed students in their thousands and millions assess those loans. And this year, when we saw the humongous amount of people that are still waiting on the pipeline to equally access the loan, we ramp it up in the 2025 Appropriation Act to 88 billion. And that is real-time development for a whole population of our students, which has brought a lot of succor to their parents and even them themselves. Some that don't even have parents. You pay their tuition fee and you make a monthly stipend of about 23,000 naira every month for them to run their schools, whatever. That's number one. Then you talked about the minimum wage that we pass into law from 30,000 naira to 70,000 naira. That is real-time development for a whole lot of our people in Nigeria. And we equally reviewed the act for the minimum wage act to be reviewed not 5 years as it were to 3 years. So every 3 years the parliament will sit down and review the minimum wage. Who knows if by the time we review the next one within the course of this administration, we can increase it to 100,000 and Nigerians will still stand to benefit. Is it the PIB that has fully been operational via the instrumentality of the National Assembly and this administration that has given birth to a whole lot of us not importing our petroleum consumption product into this country? Dangote Refinery has been given the free hand as a result of the PIAB Act now to operate. And right now we are exporting petroleum product, refined petroleum product to as far as United States of America, as far as Saudi Arabia, which has never hitherto existed in the life of this nation. Then a whole lot of employment opportunity that has generated. The last statistics I saw that Dangote Refinery is employing over 51,000 Nigerians and others. If it was not the intervention of the parliament, that wouldn't have been possible.
I must agree with you on these milestones that have been able to be achieved through legislative intervention. But I saw a reaction yesterday owing to one of the headlines that Nigeria's request for a $5 billion oil-backed loan from Saudi Aramco suffered a setback. Many Nigerians were asking the questions of, despite the subsidy gains, despite the coming on board of Dangote Refinery, why is it that the government is resorting to more borrowing?
Let me make one thing abundantly clear. When we pass Appropriation Act bill into law, part of what makes the budget is that there is a component of the bill that has to be borrowed, element of the bill that is attributed to borrowing. And let me also say this: when we say a country borrows, lenders only give to countries that are viable,
credit-worthy.
Absolutely. So Nigeria is adjudged a nation that is very viable. I recall, like the International Monetary Fund, we refunded the debt that we owe to them as a nation, though not as a result of this administration. We refunded it. It wasn't this administration that borrowed it. We refunded about $3.2 billion US. And we are on a very clean slate in that respect. So if Nigeria wants to go back there and ask for more money to revamp our infrastructure, they will gladly give. So yes, Nigeria, despite the removal of fuel subsidy, we still need more money to develop our nation. And if you look at the length and breadth of this nation in terms of infrastructure, will we say that all our road networks have been completely paved? The answer is no. As our educational institution reach where we want it to be? The answer is no. What about our health institution? The answer is no. So that is why Nigeria is called a developing nation, because we are a work in the progress. But the question is, are we in the right direction? I will tell you as a member of the parliament, yes. Based on the different bills that we have enacted in the House, clearly shows that Nigeria is on the right path. And whatever money the nation, the managers of the nation deem it necessary to borrow in order to build our infrastructure to be at par with what is obtained in other nations, I will tell you that Nigeria is ripe. Is it the gas? The gas deposit of Nigeria has not even been touched. So we are abundantly blessed. Is it the lithium deposit in Nigeria? Has not really been touched. Recently, about a couple of months back, the president commissioned the largest lithium mining company in this country. And he mandated them to not just cut away the raw material out, they should add value to it. That is one big resource that this country has that has not been touched? Is it in terms of resourceful youth, human population, active population? That is what other nations are jealous in Nigeria, the black country on the planet Earth. So irrespective of whatever we borrow, as long as it is put into the rightful usage, Nigeria is on the right track. So nobody should panic.
Now you're the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on National Planning
Absolutely.
and Economic Development. Correct. The big questions are that since 2006, when we had our last national population and housing exercise, we missed the 2010-2020 rounds of census. I know the President had mandated a committee to look into the budget as requested by the MPC to conduct the next round of census. Would you care to give us insights as to how far these legislative interventions are in achieving that? Are we to expect the census before the end of this year? Is there a timeline for that?
Yes, if I'm correct, before the inauguration of this administration in 29th May 2023, the last administration appropriated some money to the agency in charge of conducting population. And when we came on board, I think the first critical assignment was that we looked into what was released and what was their level of preparation. And I think what we also found out that it was not at par, and we needed to look into their records and strengthen their records to be sure that they are capable of conducting a viable and census for Nigeria. So that's, by the way, it is part of what we are working. You see, data is everything. If there is anything I have observed in this administration is that they have given credence to data mining, to accurate data storage, and all that. And if you look at the evolution of even technology, one may equally ask, do we really need to conduct a fresh census when we have an agency like NIN that for you to do virtually anything in Nigeria now, you must have your NIN number. And that NIN number is more accurate because no two persons has the same NIN number.
I did argue with that with the NPC, and they said that for NIMC, that they just focus on biometric data, that they at the National Population Commission also, beyond data, count the houses and plan in terms of the other demographic statistics that we need in our national planning. But the challenge here is with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu rejecting the 942 billion naira request from the MPC for the census, which is an additional 1.1 trillion over what was requested in 2023, like you rightly said. Do you think that that amount which would be needed to count our population of way over 230 million persons, do you think that amount justifies?
That is where the National Assembly was a little bit not too comfortable, because it's one thing for you to request for an amount to carry out an exercise. It's one thing for the amount to be justified. Because my background is quantity surveying. Just like you said, I'm the Deputy Chairman in charge of National Planning and Economic Development, which the budget of this nation is completely under my committee's oversight as the Deputy Chairman. So I equally do a lot in scrutinizing the budget. So sometimes you look at what is requested and you look at the description of what item that needs to be appropriated for, and you see that there are miles difference, and we query. So the presidency asking questions as to the amount requested by the MPC and the responsibility they need to carry out is in tandem with what even the National Assembly would do or is doing. So it is for the MPC to come clean and say, look, this is what we intend to do. But I'll still argue, Nigeria and the nation has evolved. Do we really need to go physical in counting houses when we have technology that can, with a split of second, give the total numbers of houses in Abuja and even those that are coming up? I think we have reached a stage where we should deploy this technology and for effective usage and planning. So we don't need to expend that amount of money just to count houses. If they exclude, okay, NIN, as NIMC has taken care of the humans in Nigeria, why do we need, did NIMC use that amount to appropriate
to begin enrollment
in counting Nigerians. I'm not sure they use that. So why would NPC wants to appropriate that kind of amount to count, let me say, non-living things in the country?
Well, interesting. In terms of economic planning, it's also been the challenges on food security associated with insecurity, where a number of farmers have been displaced from their farmlands. But even worsening is the fact that natural disasters and flood have also further worsened our issue. Let's start with the issue of food security and then move into insecurity. In terms of our economic planning, are there any plans on grounds to maximize the newly created Ministry of Livestock and also ensure that we have adequate plans on ground to ensure we don't suffer this persistent issue of hunger?
Let me also make one point abundantly clear. Nigeria is not where we want it to be, and obviously we are not where we used to be. It is a work in progress. One confidence I would like to give to Nigerians is that we are on the right track. We are heading towards the airport. And give us time. We will arrive at the airport and we will not miss our flight. Now, for a very long time in the history of this nation, about 3 to 4 months ago, we started recording trade surplus. It has never been. By that I mean that what we are exporting from Nigeria is more than what we are importing into Nigeria. We have always heard of trade deficit. And let me share this practical experience I had when I visited one of my friends in Lagos, Apapa Port. Was the port managers at that time. And I saw a whole lot of cargo vessels. I said, how do they manage all these vessels? And the man told me, these are not vessels. If you go to other nations, you will see vessels and you'll be amazed that if Nigeria is to operate the way it should be, that you will experience more vessels and you see more vessels. I asked him, explain. He said most of these vessels that we literally beg them to come. Because when these bigger vessels come and they upload the goods they bring into Nigeria, they don't have what goods again to store, to stock in their ships, to go back. And that means a whole lot of risks to the vessels. Because on the high sea, if there is no counter load, dead load to balance the ship in the high sea, it can turn to something else. That if Nigeria was to be a producing nation at optimum, that more bigger vessels will be eager to come to Nigeria, because when they offload, they will equally have loads to load and go. And do you know what that would translate to our economy? But I'm happy that we are getting gradually back to that track. When I saw that data that we are operating this trade surplus now, and I said, fantastic. Meaning that we are exporting. All what we are consuming in our nation is not imported. And with the policy of Nigeria's first policy by Mr. President, that we must be able to grow what we eat and eat what we grow and use what we produce, it is also making impact. And don't also forget, that very policy has been communicated to Bureau of Public Procurement in order for us to rearrange our Procurement Act to reflect that what we have in Nigeria must be prioritized, that you must not source for any goods outside the shores of Nigeria when we have it in Nigeria. And when I saw all these policies, I beat my chest and said, Nigeria is getting it. It's getting it because even in the legislative angle of it, I proposed a bill for the establishment of National Commission on Technology Transfer. And what was the import, or what is the import of the bill? Is simply to see to it that we make use of what we have, and what we do not have, we use what we have to attract what we have to Nigeria. That is what other developed nations on the earth has done. China is currently practicing it. Indonesia is doing it. The very glaring example is Indonesia and Apple. Apple made concerted effort to break into the market of Indonesia. Indonesian government blocked it until they establish a $1 billion factory in Indonesia before they could allow the product, Apple product, to penetrate into the market of Indonesia. And that is the whole essence of having a robust legislation that backs up with the executive to see to it that nobody uses your country as a dumping ground. And I'm very happy that this administration, in conjunction with the 10th National Assembly, is achieving just that.
Now, I'll talk about overarchingly the both houses working in synergy, because yesterday was a joint address. But over time, the President of the Senate and Chairman of the National Assembly, Senator Godswill Akpabio, had received some stick from Nigerians over a comment he made saying that the Nigerian people should not expect the 10th National Assembly to be up in boxing gloves with the executive, that they need to know that there's supposed to be synergy in government as against this rogue ideology of separation of power theories. Many would reference the Senate under Dr. Bukola Saraki as then with President Muhammadu Buhari almost going at loggerheads over issues that pertains to national interest. How do you view the comments of the Chairman of National Assembly and Senate President vis-a-vis what Nigerians believe is a working legislature?
We need to do a lot of education and enlightenment to many of our citizens, and we need to compare notes. The Bukola Saraki's late Senate President, if reference, for 4 years, 8 years, how many bills with the, is it Fitikoff that we're having with the executive? How many were they able to give to Nigerians as compared to the Dr. Godswill Akpabio, late Senate President or National Assembly? Within 2 years, the bills, the motions, and all that we have been able to churn out. But that's just by the way. Let me say this to Nigerians, that you see a couple maybe walked on the street, maybe enter into a eatery, a joint, and sit down and they eat peacefully, and they have a cordial conversation. There is compatibility. That does not in any way means that when they get into their parlor, their bedroom, their kitchen, their toilet, that they don't have misunderstanding. It's just that they are matured enough to cascade their misunderstanding to some secluded places, not in the public domain. It is a common knowledge that you don't wash your little linen in the public. So the Akpabio late National Assembly and the executive have reached a level of maturity where even the tiniest of misunderstanding they have cannot be seen in the public. They have a way of ironing out in the closets. When we call for executive sessions in the National Assembly, what do you think we discuss? That is actually where many differences are ironed out. The executive proposition to the National Assembly and what the Parliament thinks. We iron it out perfectly and we arrived at the same conclusion. Then we throw our doors open for the media to come and see the prepared maybe food that we have done. So Nigerians should not think that it is only when we come on the pages of maybe newspaper and the screens of television to tell Mr. President what you are doing is not right and what the Senate is doing is not right, or what the House of Reps is doing is not right, that is when Nigeria will now be happy that, oh, indeed, the National Assembly is working. No, it doesn't have to be like that. Maturity simply means that you look at somebody in the eyes and tell him, look, what you are about to bring out here is not right. And you do it in a matured way where your children are not privy to, because the children should not be a part of your misunderstanding between husband and wife. What the children expect is that their school fees are paid when they should be paid. The food is on the table when it should be on the table. And maybe the house rent is paid for them to have a comfortable and habitable environment to grow. But how you want to put that between you and the husband to see to it that the children does not suffer for your misunderstanding, you do it in a matured way. That is where the National Assembly and the executive comes in. What about the tax bill? Let me use that as an example. The tax bill, it is an executive bill. The executive proposed that we should increase the VAT, value-added tax, to 12.5%.
And it was stood down.
And for further increment to 15%. And the parliament said no. The people that would suffer this policy more are the children, the citizens. We should maintain it at where it is, 7.5%. But we did that in a matured way without having any confrontation with the executive. The question is, did the executive give in to what we demanded? Yes, and so many other things. So we must not be at loggerhead. So referencing the Senate President and the 10th National Assembly Chairman is quite right. We must not be at we are not wearing boxing gloves. We are not boxing each other. The President is working for the betterment of this country. The Senate President is working for the betterment of this country. The Speaker is working for the betterment of this country, and by extension, the National Assembly.
Now, still talking about democracy and legislation in Nigeria as it were currently, there's been this allegation of one-party state. Your party has been accused of trying to take over the majority of seats in both chambers. Currently in the Senate, there are 68 APC senators. In the House of Reps, there are 207 APC senators. One of those persons, Senator Ali Ndume, was speaking about that, and he was very critical of the APC. He was talking about prioritizing governance over plans for 2027. I don't know where you stand on this. Do you think that these massive defections that we're seeing the APC being the benefactor of, it's not like there are no other decampees moving in the opposite direction, is leading us into that one-party state system?
I would disagree. Because if you check the INEC portal, we still have about, is it 17 to 18 registered political parties?
18.
Yes, 18 registered political parties. And if you listen to what the president said yesterday, that he has not made any attempt to shut INEC from even registering any other political party. So, that we have prepared our house, furnish it, and people are eager to come around the environment to snap pictures and identify with the house. It's not our fault. It simply means that we are matured in handling even our tiniest differences, that it doesn't show in the public. Unlike the other political party, every simple thing, you see them on the pages of newspaper, televisions, reading press releases and all that. It's uncalled for. APC is a very matured party, and that is because we worked tirelessly for the powers and the governance that we have today. It took us some time, so we value it, we treasure it. Unlike the PDP, I asked a question. In 1999, when democracy returned and PDP became the ruling party, who fought against them? How many political parties fought against them? And they've been on the saddle. So PDP is just like a spoiled child who were completely spoiled with the wealth of this nation. They witnessed the stupendous wealth of this nation in an era where even one of them, the coordinating minister of economy and minister for finances at that time, advised them, look, let us save for the rainy day. And they threw their hands in fatalistic resignation and said it will always be. So they saw wealth, they misused wealth. Instead of developing Nigeria in their time, they were using it and fritter it away to develop other nations. And now they are crying foul. So when the power is no longer with them, the resources are no longer with them, they don't know what to do. That is why within just 2 years, is it six years? And they are all crying wolves. They cannot call themselves together to build their house and look at themselves eyeball to eyeball and tell them what they need to do. Up till now, they are still just talking trash. Even for them to service, is it the
ground rent?
The ground rent. They could not. How much is the ground rent? And they have governors, they have senators, they have House of Reps members, they have local government chairmen. They could not, because they never used to pay. So to them it's alien.
Now, talking about the APC in preparation for 2027 as well, there have been massive endorsements for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's second term. It's coming at a time when there have also been massive billboards and campaigns. The PDP were also critical of that move, saying that it's a premature campaign for 2027. Whilst the presidency is distancing itself from those campaign billboards, saying that they are not sponsoring that and they have not begun plans for 2027. As a party, do you see the opposition's bickering over these issues as relative to what governance should be at the time and not endorsements or decamping?
No, I can categorically say, as a fact, that right now in Nigeria we do not have any opposition. They should all bury their head in shame. And it is not as a result of Mr. President. It is not as a result of the Senate President or the Speaker. They should bury their head in shame. They don't have the balls, what it means to stand their ground and look at a government in power and say contrary. How many of them can pick holes into the policies of this administration constructively? None, absolutely none. So, I repeat, they should bury their head in shame. They are completely a disappointment. Let me ask a question. Supposing the APC family did not build their house, where would they be decamping to? Of course, we cannot also shut our doors because there is freedom of association guaranteed by the Constitution for any member of the public to come into our party. We embrace you. But that is not our fault that they are moving in. But rather, it is their fault that they have not built their houses to accommodate even the tiniest of different interests that arise.
Honorable Clement Jimbo, talking about interest, now that there are more decampees coming into the APC, do you have concerns that there might be a conflict of interest for card-carrying members who believe that they've been longer in the party and going into the 2027 elections, they are nursing ambitions, and persons who are already in power who are decamping that would be vying second terms in office? How does the party sort of manage these ambitions and interests, much like you've spoken about?
The APC does not have any problem, and we are not afraid of whoever that is coming into the party. Like I said, we are matured. We are like a house built upon a rock. We have a solid foundation. For example, let me use myself as an example. I've been a member of APC. I stood election under the platform in 2023 and I won. In my local government, by virtue of political office, I am the ranking. I am the biggest. So any other person that is coming into the APC from whatever platform, of course, in Abak, Ika Federal, we only have one House of Representative member. So there is nobody that would decamp from another party to come to APC and he will be addressed as a sitting member, House of Representatives. Absolutely none. So every other person that moves in with your political portfolio and nomenclature you carry with, there is provision in the party constitution.
Based on ranking.
Yes, that gives you your place, your pride of place. So, for example, if the sitting commissioner, like in my local government, moves in, he has his own place in the constitution that is not at rival with my place. Then when we want to go into election, of course it's open for all. If you want to vie for any position, the party constitutions ask you to buy the nomination form in couple with the Electoral Act 2022. You buy the nomination form, then you canvass for votes from the electorate to become the candidate.
A party primaries first.
Yes, yes, they are still electorate. You canvass for votes, and if they elect you and you become the candidate of the party, then the party and everybody will vote for you based on your campaign promises you promised them. So there is no conflict. That they are coming in, the constitution of the party does not stop them from vying for elective position. No. If you become a member of the All Progressives Congress today, the rights and privileges accorded to somebody who has been a member for 10, 20 years is equally accorded to you. That is why APC is different, because we don't discriminate. Unlike other parties' constitution, that you must be a member for 2, 3, 4, 5 years before you can aspire. That is where APC is unique. So there is no conflict of interest. We will manage it and manage it maturely.
Now, still staying with Akwa Ibom State,
yes.
There was a lot of dust over the campaign of the state governor, Pastor Mweno, particularly not on his part because he's been vocal about it, had endorsed President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at a rally, but with his functionaries. A number of them are tendering in resignations, saying that they would stay with the PDP in Akwa Ibom State. At the state level, I know you also have a colleague who is a member in the House from the PDP. We had him on the program the other day. I don't know. What's happening in that regard? How's the state managing a state that was formerly PDP, even the Senate president, and now there seems to be a transition with the Hurricane Tinubu blowing more people into the APC?
You see, the point has to be made. There is freedom of association in Nigeria, guaranteed in the Constitution. And if any member of the State Executive Council, Akwa Ibom State in reference here, decides not to do the part of the governor, he's very free, and the governor will not force him. But the governor has taken leadership. But what a lot of people do not know, let me use a few seconds here to drive in this point. Intelligent people study history. And you look at what event that has happened in the past. You look at what is happening today. Then you bring what has happened in the past to what is happening today. Is there any nexus? Then you can project into the future with some level of certainty what is likely going to happen. If you look at Akwa Ibom State, in 1999, Architect Obong Victor Tar was the governor. The political atmosphere of Akwa Ibom State in 1999, 2000, and 2001, Google it. It was characterized by less or zero opposition in the state. And Architect Obong Victor Tar comes from Uyo Senatorial District of Akwa Ibom State. Now we have come full cycle. Ikot Senatorial District has taken their turn. Eket Senatorial District has taken their turn. Now, the next governor that we are having today is from Uyo Senatorial District, meaning there is a new cycle. So 25 to 26 years after, we can see clearly that what played out in Akwa Ibom State in 1999, 2000, 2001, where we have less or zero position in the state, is being bet again. Pastor Umoino just celebrated 2 years anniversary, going into 30. We are equally witnessing zero or less opposition in the state. Now, addressing the question of some of his cabinet members not joining him, the one that I particularly know, which I have seen his resignation letter, is Commissioner Etim Ekpo. That's the only one that I've seen. I've not seen any other person that have resigned. He resigned based on ignorance. He's very ignorant on what I have just told you. He is so young to know that any leader that toes the path of divinity cannot be fought against with and succeeded. If he's completely learned on the recent history that I've just highlighted with the current events, then he would have been informed of what is likely going to be in the next future.
So imperative, you're saying that opposition going into the next future, much like Comrade Etim Ekpo, might not have the political backing to vie for offices in the state.
What office is he going to vie for? Has he ever vied for any office before in his life? He was a factional non-president. What office has he ever occupied that he fought for? He was the publicity secretary of PDP. He was nominated to become one. He was a member of the State Executive Council as a commissioner of
information. Appointed under the former governor.
He was equally appointed. He was reappointed to head the Deep Sea Port Ministry. So
by Governor Umoino.
When you say what cloud does he have?
So you think it's a premature move?
Completely. It's like I said, it's ignorant. It's completely naive. It's not about blowing grammar. No, it's far from it. Speaking good English is not a measure of intelligence. You must be able to take decisions and look at the outcome of your decision over time. That is what makes a leader a leader. Look at the person of Senator Godswill Oburo-Kpabi, the Senate President. When he decided to move from PDP to APC in 2015, what has that decision spiraled into today? That is when you know a leader. It was very unpopular. But is it popular now? Of course, yes.
But is there room for political forgiveness in terms of what you say is
when you say forgiveness, the governor has not said that anybody that have resigned cannot join the APC.
Imperatively, with this history you've created, it almost seems as though, since he hasn't garnered a lot of political muscle to even vie for an office, this move might deter him from getting into those favors that prepare him or have the backing of such leaders in the state to sponsor him to an election.
You see, like I said, APC is a very big room, has a very big room for anybody. He can still decide to join, but let me equally buttress the fact that I mentioned that the fact that he's very ignorant. He was appointed the commissioner to represent his local government. The question is, did he consult his local government area before tendering his resignation? Or he felt that being a commissioner is only for himself, for only his self-aggrandizement? How about the local government that he represents? Because when the list of commissioners were reeled out, his name was there, then his local government was penciled against his name. Did he consult his local government, whether his local government is in support of what he has done? So he took that decision completely based on selfishness. And the governor has the right to take away that very position from that local government and place it in another local government, maybe within the same senatorial district that he comes from, to teach him a lesson that you don't take such decision based on selfishness. When you talk, when he flaunts the word integrity, I sat where I watched and I just laughed. I said, what integrity do you have? Do you understand the meaning of the word integrity? What integrity did you have when you called the current Senate president an unprintable names? Is that what you call integrity? Insulting elders? People that have brought you to limelight politically, given you a life that you never had, and you say that is integrity, and you don't want to divorce yourself from that because the governor has told the path of peace and unity, and you want to remain in this unity, insult, and you call that integrity. No, it's completely ignorant. Completely.
Well, quite interesting takes you have on the program this morning. Moving away from Akwa Ibom, let's come back to the issues of the tenets of democracy and those visible ideals, one of which is the elections. We know we're talking democracy and the legislature in Nigeria. In 1993, a lot of Nigerians, I don't know about yourself, had dubbed it one of the fairest elections. I don't know if it's because of the Form A4 and anyone standing on the queue could tell who you were voting for. But going into the next election circles in 2027, there's a lot of trust deficit in Nigerians about the process in itself. I don't know what you think would be one of the ways, talking about reforms, electoral reforms, and the role of the 10th Senate and the House of Representatives in ensuring that the electoral process redeems the trust deficit in Nigerians, that they can trust that the process will be free and fair.
Of course, it's still a work in the progress. By the grace of God, I'm the member of the Constitutional Review Committee, and part of what we've considered in the last, should I say 1.5 years, has been electoral reform. We have a lot of electoral reform bills that we are currently considering. And I can assure Nigerians that what we are going to witness in 2027 will be, to a very greater extent, a great departure from what we experienced in 2023. We are, of course, if you followed the activities of INEC closely, you discover that recently they created a department for artificial intelligence. So that is going to add credence to the credibility of electoral processes outcome. And of course, people are already talking about from civil organizations. Why do we even need to use ballot papers? Why can't we incorporate technology into the beavers that the moment you are verified, a card is brought out for you, you simply thumbprint whoever you are voting, then you drop it at the ballot boxes, and as the moment it is printed, it is transmitted immediately to wherever it needs to be collated. So with a lot of technology, we can lessen the human interface in our electoral process, which will add a lot of credibility to it. So we are looking at all those different reforms bit by bit, and to see to it that before the end of this year, we conclude on them and we present them to Mr. President for assent so that Nigerians can begin to understand the different changes anticipated going forward into 2027 general elections.
I know you had also talked about the need for more education and orientation, particularly in terms of the electoral reforms that are ongoing. But majority of Nigerians who participated in the 2023 general elections were kind of disconnected when INEC talked about reserving the power to go about collating the results without regard or recourse to the promise of transmitting them in real time via the IRF portal. This was one of the banes of the issues that brought about this trust deficit. On that particular clause, would it be better explained, or would INEC be compelled to transmitting results in real time for Nigerians to believe that there's some sort of transparency in whatever elections?
Let me say this to Nigerians and those who even care to listen. There is what is called plausible deniability, and there is what is called in the legal parlance vicarious liabilities. It would be wrong for you to admit to something that you don't have absolute power over to control. Absolutely wrong. If you look at the recent happening in JAM, where a lot of people and students were disenfranchised, so to say, and their results were mixed up, and the JAM registrar came and took all the responsibility and even cried and wept. The question you will really ask, did he have absolute power over all the management and processes and technologies that were deployed? The answer is no. He simply took responsibility because he is a registrar. But INEC, no. It's a no-go area. INEC does not have the absolute power to regulate the network providers. They don't. The network providers do not have absolute power to control the devices that they import into Nigeria because they are not produced here. They have a different bilateral agreement with the manufacturers and producers of this component. And who knows what they must have injected or added to the devices that at any maybe slightest provocation it is stripped off. So INEC will be wrong to absolutely absorb all that, thinking that it is absolutely in their power. That is why Mr. President has said something in his speech yesterday, that the parliament should enact bills and laws that will gear towards the manufacturing sector of Nigeria, so that most of these devices and these components can be manufactured and produced here in Nigeria. So if we want to deploy absolute technology in our electioneering processes, we can tell company A that is in charge of producing microchips, this is what we want you to produce. And if anything goes wrong, we know that it is your neck that will be on the line, and they will sit up. That is why Nigeria is still a work in progress. So for INEC to come and accept all the vicarious liabilities of even third, fourth, sixth parties, it will be wrong. So intelligent people will play safe. Let us give them the leverage to choose whichever one it is convenience to them to use. And also what we should also know, INEC are members, INEC personnel are Nigerians who also desire well for Nigeria. Irrespective of who becomes the president, the governor, the senator, INEC still remains. Nigeria will still remain. So I don't really see that an INEC chairman will, for example, prefer to declare a particular person the winner of an election that he or she did not win. To what gain? That does not stop his salary, or that does not increase his salary. It doesn't stop the allocation of the commission from coming, and it does not equally reduce it. So to what gain? Just like I am the member of National Assembly, I sit down here and I speak my mind and put to power. It does not stop my salary from coming, and nobody from the executive can stop my salary from coming. So that can I speak for
That would favor you.
That will favor me. Then I will cut the clip and I'll send it to him. Look, if you are made the national chairman, look, I supported you. Therefore, so at no point will Nigerians stop complaining. If we say let the judiciary be the one that will appoint, the question is who appoint the judiciaries?
Big puzzle here. Well, Honorable Clement Jimbo, quite a thought-invoking conversation this morning. Time, I'm afraid, is not our friends to delve deep into it, but we've set a premise. This is the second time I'm sitting with you to discuss the 10th National Assembly. Hopefully, the 10th time we do so, we'll be able to really look at your deputy chairmanship, national planning, because I'm very interested about our next population census, and look at the committee as inaugurated by Mr. President and how far they've been able to reach a consensus. I hope we can do that.
Fantastic. I'm just a call away, as long as it does not contradict with other critical appointments.
No problem.
Thank you.